immediately. But listen here as the star, Rachel Zegler, does a massive backflip. She's gone from bagging the original story to saying it's an example to admire.
That is part of the beauty of Snow White. It has been for 88 years now that she just sees the good in everyone and everything. And I hope that I and so many people who watch this film can embody that as well.
This movie should be called, they should call this movie Snow Woke and the Seven Pronouns. It's so bad. If you were to watch this movie on an aeroplane, Andrew, you'd walk out.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Wow, people love me.
I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film.
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
It looks like Rachel Zegler is having a serious change of heart. Or maybe just a reality check. The Snow White star, who once had no problem throwing shade at the iconic Disney classic, is now singing a very different tune. In a recent interview, Zegler called the original Snow White an example to admire.
It's part of the beauty of Snow White. It has been for 88 years now that she just sees the good in everyone and everything. And I hope that I and so many people who watch this film can embody that as well.
Wait, what? Didn't she just call it outdated and problematic not too long ago? Let's rewind for a second. When Rachel Zegler was first announced as the lead in Disney's live-action Snow White, the internet had mixed reactions. But instead of easing tensions, Rachel made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In multiple interviews, she didn't just critique the original film, she slammed it. With the confidence of someone who thought they were reinventing feminism, Rachel went on record saying Snow White was not a love story anymore, and that the original prince was basically a creepy stalker.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. A lot of people will assume is a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Yeah, not exactly the best way to win over lifelong Disney fans. In one now infamous red carpet interview, Zegler said, "It's no longer 1937, implying that the original story was outdated and irrelevant. She even joked that the prince in the original film was a guy who literally stalks her weird. And she didn't stop there. Rachel made it clear that her version of Snow White would be very different. She emphasized that her Snow White wouldn't be dreaming about true love or waiting to be saved. Instead, she'd be a strong, independent woman with a leadership mindset.
We absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
While that may sound empowering on the surface, fans weren't exactly thrilled. Many felt she was disrespecting a beloved classic. After all, Snow White wasn't just any fairy tale, it was Disney's first full-length animated feature. A cultural icon, a trailblazer, and here was Rachel, the face of the remake, acting like it was a relic to be discarded.
My grandmother saw the original in the theaters, obviously, and I remember she told us that when people watched it originally in 1937 in the theaters, it was an amazing experience because for most people, it was the first color movie. And so, first of all, there was the visual of it. But second of all, people had so connected emotionally with the character of Snow White that when she eats from the apple and she dies, people were literally weeping in the theater because they liked the character of Snow White so much. It seems like it's difficult to imagine a situation in which anyone was weeping in the theater as Rachel Zegler's character goes into a coma after eating an apple.
There were actually raucous rounds of applause in the theater. Of course, I was the only person in the theater, so maybe that might explain it. But probably in other theaters around the country.
Naturally, the backlash came fast and furious. Social media exploded with criticism, memes, and even calls to boycott the film. Many accused Zegler of being arrogant, ungrateful, and tone-deaf. Some even wondered how Disney had greenlit a remake starring someone who didn't seem to respect the original material. But now, it seems like Rachel is trying to rewrite the narrative.
After the box office flop, Snow White lost hundreds of millions of dollars for Disney. She decides to rage post behind every strong woman is herself. She continued celebrating herself by posting that she's in the #1 movie in the world, which is a remarkable thing to post when you are the laughingstock of an entire industry. This is what narcissism looks like.
In her latest public appearance, Zegler suddenly had nothing but praise for the original Snow White. With a surprisingly sincere tone, she said, "That is part of the beauty of Snow White. For 88 years now, she's seen the good in everyone and everything. I hope I, and so many people who watch this film, can embody that as well." Whoa, that's a pretty dramatic shift. Fans who've been following her journey closely are scratching their heads. Is this a genuine moment of self-reflection, or just carefully crafted PR to undo the damage of her previous comments? Let's be real, Hollywood has a long history of celebrities backtracking after a backlash, and in Rachel's case, the damage was already done. People weren't just upset by her comments on Snow White, they were also confused by her overall attitude during press tours. She came off as dismissive, sarcastic, and almost too cool for the role she was playing. It didn't help that in some clips, she seemed more focused on distancing herself from the original than actually promoting the new film.
Disney's woke reimagining of Snow White has been widely panned as one of the worst movies ever. Even the most so-called progressive publications hates this film. Let's just have a look at just a few of the summaries here. Lazy, visually repellent, said The Independent. Exhaustingly awful, said The Guardian. I like that one. A strange, hot mess came from the Huffington Post. Good enough for TV. That's about the nicest review we've seen. That was from Vanity Fair. And the BBC came up with, the film has a major identity crisis. Again, BBC being polite there. And I've got to say, the extraordinarily bad film isn't helped by the fact that its biggest star is deeply unpopular. Snow White actress Rachel Zegler is an unlikable lefty activist, infamous for all sorts of outbursts.
And let's not forget the time she said she wouldn't have taken the role if it didn't have a modern feminist twist. That quote alone sent fans into a frenzy. Why take the role of Snow White, a symbol of classic Disney magic, if you don't even like the character? It's moments like these that made people question whether Rachel truly understood the weight of the role she took on. Snow White isn't just another princess, she's the princess, the one that started it all. So this sudden wave of admiration? Yeah, it feels a little too convenient.
Alright guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
My father told me long ago I braved a bitter storm of snow.
Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film. Snow White is the fairest of them all because she has these communist sensibilities to share all resources with the farmers that till the land, and she got those sensibilities from her mother and her father.
Of course, some fans are welcoming the change. They say people should be allowed to grow, learn, and evolve. Maybe Rachel realized how her words affected fans. Maybe she had a real change of heart after actually watching the original with fresh eyes. If that's the case, good on her, but others aren't buying it. They see it as damage control as Disney can't afford another box office flop. And with so many people already skeptical, it makes sense that the team behind Snow White would want to soften Rachel's image.
So people have been sharing how few people are going to see Disney's Snow White and how bad Gal Gadot is going to be in the movie and like all of that. But I thought this one was hilarious. One single person bought a seat in the middle of the theater. They probably going to shut the lights out because they gonna think nobody showed up. But this is hilarious. Also kind of creepy. Like, bro, I would be so weirded out if I was the only person in a movie theater watching a movie.
Either way, it's a fascinating transformation. From bashing the source material to suddenly calling it admirable, it's giving whiplash. And it raises an important question. Can a public apology or shift in tone truly erase the impact of previous statements? Or do fans remember everything, especially in the age of receipts and viral clips.
Had not fallen prey to wokeness and nonsense in recent years. Even if Disney still had the most talented people in the world working, with the best writers, with a good sense of narrative and the cultural moment, even if everything worked perfectly, it would have been almost impossible for this movie to succeed, because you're comparing it to one of the most beloved films of all time and a truly groundbreaking movie. And Disney was not sending its best. I sat through the whole thing. I don't want to say it was the worst movie I've ever seen. It wasn't. But every way that the movie changed the story from the original, the 1937 movie, or even from the original Grimm Brothers fairy tale, every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just off.
Here's what we do know. Rachel Zegler has had a rocky relationship with the public ever since stepping into Snow White's iconic shoes. Her comments, her attitude, and even her tone in interviews have all played a role in shaping how fans perceive her.
Rachel Zegler is now suing Disney Studios after her bomb of a movie, Snow White. According to reports, she's allegedly pursuing action for wrongful termination, gender discrimination, and defamation. She's claiming that Disney and other studios like Sony, Paramount, and Lionsgate have removed her from projects which she was already contracted for. It is very clear that things with her in the studio are not good right now. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts.
But with this recent shift in narrative, she might just be trying to win them back. Will it work? That remains to be seen. One thing's for sure, when the movie finally hits theaters, audiences will be watching closely. Not just to see how the story has changed, but to see if Rachel Zegler can really bring the magic of Snow White back to life. And whether fans choose to forgive or forget, this roller coaster of a press journey is already one for the Disney history books. Do share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one!